What is up, Nerf herders? Welcome back to the Nap and our very first webcast. Webcast, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what we'd call it at this point, honestly. But we're not just audio today. We were like, you know what? We've got the technology. Let's just do it.
We have the technology. Well, I just
throw
felt
it out
dumb, man. I've been doing more of these little interview segments, and I'm like, I'm seeing all these strangers, but I'm not seeing my buddy Seth. And then on top of that, you gave me this nicer webcam, which I'm sure someone has noticed that I'm a little less grainy. So I was like, well, now I definitely have to link up with Seth. So
You know, I've got all kinds of goodies just kind of sitting in this drawer, and they're all technological, and I keep forgetting that they're in there. But no, for our YouTube audience who haven't seen our faces in a long time, this is you can catch if you've been catching the audio only version of our podcast up till now, this is just a straight up continuation off of that. If you haven't caught those episodes, go back and listen to them, but you won't be. We don't have a plot. You're not skipping out on a storyline or anything like that.
Yeah, you are. Well, we do follow-ups on previous news stories. Like we got some follow-ups today. Sure. So,
and we are continuing our Clone Wars review with season 4.
Are we doing that today? 5. I thought we were doing that on Thursday.
I don't remember which one we were doing. Like Thursday. What friggin' season am I on right now?
I didn't know if you were ready or not because we got enough news to talk about today.
We definitely do. I am caught up right now to season 5. I'm on episode 7 of season 5 right now.
Oh, okay. Well, and I apologize because for some reason I thought you had seen season 7, and I was sending you some texts. Thank goodness I wasn't talking about storyline because I thought you had like watched the newest season and then decided to go back and re-binge it. So I'm glad I didn't spoil anything for you. But man, we got some stuff to talk about.
No, it had been so long since I had seen like the original series. Like I haven't actually even seen season 6.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so I'm rewatching season 5, but after that I'm seeing all new stuff. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that I was like caught up. And so it was just, since it's all there, I was like, why not? Let's just binge through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're like, season 5 was the one that I was really excited about because I remember how much of one of my favorite characters in this series was in there. And then, seeing him revealed as being alive and his whole like reveal episode in season 4 is excellent. We can talk about that today, or we can push that off to Thursday if you want. Like,
let's cover the news that we have for today, and if we got time, we can do that. We can tag it at the end, or we can do it on Thursday.
I got you. Well, I know you want to talk about James Cameron because you had a couple links that you were wanting to throw my way for that.
Oh yeah, well, James Cameron is actually the smallest story of the links that I threw at you. It just kind of cracked me up. James, he's a visionary man, and he used to be able to churn out movies, and in the last like couple decades, he's just been going after those project films. You know, if it doesn't take him a decade to make the film, then it must not be worth his time. Because I mean, he's dropping things like, you know, he passed off Alita to friends to make. He's passed on a lot of properties that originally he wanted or claimed he wanted to make so that he can pursue these bigger films. And I mean, he pulled it off with Avatar 1 that, you know, despite being a, you know, space version of Pocahontas, it was visually impressive and it did crazy good numbers. I mean, to date, Endgame is the only one that's beat it, and it barely beat it. So, yeah. I mean, that's something to be said. But the article I wanted to share with you was that James Cameron is saying that despite filming delays this year, he still believes that Avatar 2 will make its 2021 release date. And did it say, what was the actual release date? Let's see here. It's supposed to release in December of 2021. So there's still a year and a half out. But I just read that and I was like, you've got to be shitting me. Because when you have things like The Walking Dead, which the finale of this season 10 of The Walking Dead was supposed to be a couple weeks ago, and they they canceled it. Well, they suspended it until the fall because they couldn't do the post-production. They couldn't, I don't know why. I mean, that's mostly things you do on your computer, but I guess they couldn't do, they were done filming and everything, but they couldn't finish the post-production. So they've delayed it. And this is saying that they have filming delays. So they're not even to the post-production, which with such, visually stunning things as Avatar is, and as commonplace it is for James to say a date and then totally miss that date, I just can't see it actually releasing next year.
That's kind of the real issue that I'm seeing with a lot of, like, because we got more news kind of around that today. And I remember reading another article. It was kind of like the death and then the revival of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's undoubtable that we're in a really interesting time as far as entertainment in and of itself. Like I was listening to that Joe Rogan podcast that he did with Tom Segura, and they're talking about like the delays in their shows and how off they're going to be after all this, like because they work out, essentially, like they're working out their material.
Sure.
I mean, obviously that's not like a movie.
But there's a process. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a process. As far as post-production goes, I can't really comment on that. I guess it would really depend on where in post-production they're already at. I don't know what software we're using. We both use Premiere. Like obviously all like 100% of post-production is at home. Like we don't have a problem with that. But like when it goes up to a scale such as that, and you're dealing with however many multiple hundreds of people, I would imagine, are probably working on that in the post-production world. I mean, coordinating that is hard enough when you don't have a pandemic on your hands. Coordinating it when there is, like, I personally, like, did they give an exact date in December, or did they just say December?
Well, they said December 17th, 2021. But, and I didn't mean to confuse you, but I was comparing this to The Walking Dead, which delayed its finale for post-production. Avatar 2 is still filming, so they're not even in post-production yet. And I'm like, are you serious? That something as visually stunning and as visually hardcore as Avatar, and you're telling me that, they're still filming? I just can't see it happening, especially with, I mean, his rich history of saying he's going to make a date and then not happening.
It's pretty ambitious here, because he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 4 more Avatar movies sitting here with key release dates, all of them being in December, but of 2021, 23, 25, and 27. But he's like, I mean, as long as it took for him to work on Avatar 1, he's really looking to churn another one out every 2 years.
I know, and
for the better part of the next decade. Like,
you think that's crazy? And granted, now apparently they've been filming all of these together, so maybe that's part of it. Like films like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they did that. They filmed them all on top of each other, and that's how they were able to get them out. But
yeah, they did that over like 16 months.
Yeah. But here's, I mean, when you look at the history, because Avatar, back in 2010, after Avatar had just crossed $1 billion, James Cameron announced that they're doing a sequel back in 2010. And back then they were saying, we're going to shoot for Avatar 2 and 3 to release in December 2014 and December 2015. So that was 10 years ago. So then 2015 comes around, or 2014 comes around, and they're like, we're in pre-production. We're getting ready. 2015 comes around, and they're like, we're going to have to delay these films. Now we're shooting for 2017. So then 2016 comes around, and he says, actually, you know what? Avatar 2 is now going to be released on Christmas 2018, and Avatar 3 is going to release Christmas 2020. And then they just kept on pushing it out. So then 2017, they bumped it out another year. So like every couple of years, they have bumped it out. And the most recent bump out was to the first sequel coming out on December 17, 2021. So I mean, for the last 10 years, we've been hearing about these dates. And I know it's going to happen at some point because they have been working on it. But none of those last 10 years had a pandemic that was, shutting everything down. So I don't see this happening.
Of all times to make a promise for a release date, now is not.
I know.
It's not the time right now. I don't want to say that it's irresponsible, but I mean, with his track record, people are just gonna be like, you know what, fuck it, whatever. He that's what he does.
That was 5 years ago, man. Nobody is like, come on, Avatar 2. Now maybe when we get that first trailer, but everybody's just been like, oh, it's old man Cameron throwing out another another end of the world prediction, except it's not end of the world. It's Avatar 2 is nigh. And
I mean, it was a visually stunning movie, but it wasn't so good that I was like, oh, I need more. Like, it ended in a pretty good spot to where it really didn't need a sequel. Like, yeah, they left a cliffhanger there a little bit, but I mean, I wasn't really craving another Avatar movie. I don't know, but like we look at him as a very, very innovative filmmaker. Like he changes the game a little bit. Like he comes up with some new techniques that people hadn't thought of before. He pushes the boundaries of technology that we haven't seen. Like,
sure,
I know that he was doing a lot of stuff underwater for this one.
Yeah,
which he's done before. But also when he did it before for Titanic, he was also like the first to do anything like that, not just in the film industry, but in general.
Well, and then he also had The Abyss, and that was underwater. He is known for doing these big visual films. He did The Abyss, and he held off on Terminator 2 until they got the effects right in The Abyss. And then even though The Abyss flopped, they used similar effects that they did for the water creatures for the new baddie in Terminator 2. And I mean, and then, Avatar, yeah, I mean, South Park has some great episodes where they say that it ripped off like a Smurfs encounter that Cartman had. And he's like, this is my movie. And James Cameron ripped it off. The story, you've seen it a billion times before. It was Running with Wolves. It was Pocahontas. It was all of that stuff already. But he
Dancing with Wolves,
not Running with
Wolves. Dances with Wolves.
Moving fast.
I was so confused. It was like Running with Wolves. What?
Yeah, it's something with wolves. But Avatar might not have been crazy in story, but visually they invented new cameras to film that. They revived the 3D industry, which has been dead in the water since Jaws 3D. And I mean, and then all these other movies tried to, like Tron Legacy came after that and tried to hammer in on that. They brought, I mean, Tron was probably the only other example that got close to it, but nothing has touched the depth perception and everything that James put into that movie. I saw it in 3D IMAX, and it was the most visually impressive thing I'd ever seen on that big a scale. They did the mocap thing. It was amazing. But that's been done now. It even brought back, like they went hard on 3D. They did 3D Blu-rays after that movie release. They did 3D TVs after that movie release. Those are all gone away now. That's not really coming back, I don't see. But I'm wondering, maybe he's got something else in store for these Avatar sequels that's going to blow us away, because this is 10 years after that one. It's got to be more impressive, you would think.
I mean, the one thing that I worry about is that because he's doing sequels and he's plotting out so many of them, like what is the thing that's causing him to wait so long in between these films? Is he waiting for a new piece of technology? Like, is he waiting for like the capability to actually make that level of advancement? Like, it's looking here like, I mean, yeah, because I mean, he's talking about a completely different planet that this one's taking place on. It kind of leads into something that I'm having more and more of a problem with films, is that there's a lot of blue screen and green screen going on, which with the sci-fi universe that we're dealing with now, as far as the types of stories that they're trying to tell, you can't do a lot of them without it. I understand that. Like I love the Marvel films, but they were like 80% green screen. It's or blue screen for the rather. That's I mean, I'm an amateur filmmaker myself. Like I'm trying to get into that world, and I don't have the capability to produce something on that scale at this point in time. And so I am appreciating the more practical effects side of things, which is why like it is really neat to see what Cameron's doing here, and that he is going to try. Like, I mean, I know that he tries to implement as much real stuff as he can. Like he doesn't want to have to make up a lot of that. I like to do that in my photos. I don't like to use Photoshop.
Right.
I like it to be real. I like to create that effect. But I mean, how different are things going to end up being when you're dealing with a sequel to the same universe? I don't know. Like it's a weird like I can't put anything past him, because it's James Cameron. It's like if anybody would like change the game with like blue screen or anything like that, it would be him.
Sure.
I mean, we were just talking about how the Mandalorian was getting around stuff like that by using like the panoramic screens
right
around the entire area.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing stuff like that now, which obviously was going to step up the actors game a lot by immersing them in that universe in a much more immersive way.
Right.
Like I honestly can't doubt James Cameron's skills, but that level of technology and also wanting to implement as much practical effects as you can, the fact that they're still filming while wanting to do that. I mean, if he's stuck with a skeleton crew, it's kind of tough to imagine that this release date is going to stick.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if that gets pushed out another year. But hey, I will say this all day. It is easy to joke about James Cameron, but when you look at his past, he's one of the few directors that, especially directors of sequels, that the sequels are arguably better than the original product. Terminator 2, that was James Cameron. Aliens, that was James Cameron. He has consistently upped the game whenever he came back for sequels. Titanic 2 didn't happen. But if it did happen and James Cameron did it, it would have probably been amazing. And as ludicrous as this sounds with him talking about Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, I am more just dumbfounded and staring at him in awe that this is, I mean, he has passed on so many projects. He was talking about Alita Battle Angel a decade ago and how he was going to bring that because that was his baby. And he passed that off to, who was that? Was it Rodriguez?
I can't remember who did that one.
He passed that off to, I think Robert Rodriguez, and put it in his hands and let him do it. But he's passed on so many things and basically put his entire career for the last 10 years into these sequels. And any director of his level that just goes away for 10 years to work on a project, I have to be interested. I mean, his ego is so big. This is the guy that got up on the stage at the Oscars and said, "I'm king of the world, bitch." Like he pronounced it, and he's not afraid to float that ego around. And I mean, I don't want him to fail. I think there's so many odds against him at this point, especially since that first one was so technology driven. Like people went out to see it less because of the story, but because of the technology. And I just can't see that like maybe Avatar 2 will have a bump. I don't see that holding for the next 3-4 films, but I'm so interested to see what he has devoted a decade to that I can't wait. And I hope it does come out on time.
Yeah. Well, you also got to wonder how much of that decade was actually spent like in the trenches working on the film. Like we said, like there were some points where he was waiting for technology to advance enough to where he could actually do what he wanted to do.
Right.
Like, so how much of it was that?
Yeah, sure. But he hasn't worked on anything else. I mean, while he was doing that, while he was waiting for technology, just like, while he was waiting for the technology to do Terminator 2, he went and did The Abyss and stuff like that. There was no in-between film since Avatar 1. It's been Avatar 1, and then the next time we see him will be Avatar 2. And that'll be, if it comes out, that'll be 11 years after the last time we've seen a James Cameron directed film. And I mean, the only other thing I've seen him
needs
do
a break.
yeah, well, and
he's
been producing films, and that hasn't helped because the last 2 big films he produced was the Terminator Dark Fate, which I didn't mind as much, but a lot of people hated, and then even worse so Terminator Genisys, which he went on record saying back then that it was the best Terminator sequel you've ever seen, and it was complete dog shit. And so he needs a win, man. He really needs a win.
Well, I worry about him using avatars as the attempted win, especially after revealing that there's going to be an Avatar 5.
I know.
Up to an Avatar 5 at this point. Like, I don't know if we should be. I don't know. It was kind of like the news that you linked me the other day about The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
Like I won't mention it here on the podcast, but it revealed details that would have been a lot better to find out about them in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would have been really nice to know that to think that there was going to be a sequel coming out after seeing Avatar 2.
Yeah.
And being like, you can't leave us there. Where's the hype? Now there's going to be that expectation set. It was kind of became a problem with Marvel, like they were releasing trailers for films before the previous film had actually come out, and it was spoiling stuff for people.
Right.
It's like,
well, that's what happens when you're putting out, 3-4 year films a year. I mean, your windows end up crossing over. Yeah.
But we have the same problem now with Avatar. We're going to be expecting things to continue now, unless he comes in with completely, like I didn't do too much reading up on whether or not there was a plot to the film or anything like that. But like, if he comes in, unless he comes into Avatar 2 with completely new characters, people that we don't know, and it's like a, it's like a completely different setup in the same universe. If he doesn't do that, then there's going to be expectations throughout the remaining films. It's like, okay, well, the suspense kind of dies off, because it's like, well, they can't kill off the main character. There's a third one coming here soon. There's a fourth one coming here soon. Like it kind of lessens the magic a little bit.
Well, I mean, and
but that's more the industry more than it is James Cameron. I think that was more like the people, his backers, being like, well, if you're going to make all these films, we want to know what your plans are. And then it got out. And
but he is filming them. At least he's filming 2, 3, and 4 all at the same time. So that is also part of it. I mean, we've talked about this in the past about how I feel it's so dumb when they announce a series or a saga before they release the first film. Like, let's see if the first film flies. But in his case, he's not just saying we hope to do this. He's saying we're filming. These are just the release dates, not if as soon as we release 2, we're going to start filming on 3. He claims he's been working on 2 through 4 simultaneously. So the only thing I haven't seen is him starting to work on 5, which according to his schedule is supposed to release on
2027.
Yeah. So, but he's been working on 2 through 4 simultaneously. So if that's the case, that's a whole nother thing of not just announcing things and seeing if it'll happen, but saying, hey, we're actually working on this. And that's a whole nother hype machine. But we'll see. I just thought it was interesting. I thought that was a funny headline to put out there when, his saga has already been tainted with so many delays for the last decade. It's so crazy. For the last decade, we've been hearing about these films. I've lived in like 5 different houses, and I've heard Avatar 2 news. That's how crazy it is.
Well, with COVID being like the main determining factor as to whether or not that release date sticks, because it is still an unpredictable situation. But we are seeing more and more data to support that it's not quite as serious as everybody was preparing for. I think a lot of people came out with a lot more toilet paper than they were actually going to end up needing, but that was even during full panic mode. But we've got a few more pieces of movie news that were absolutely delayed because of COVID. And you linked Mulan, which I think was probably one of my more anticipated films for the year. That and Black Widow.
Yeah,
because this version of Mulan looks like it actually sticks to the original legend. I guess if you want to call it the original story, not so much the Disney side of one. But and so that looked. I mean, the trailer looked freaking. We did a reaction for the trailer. It looked fucking sweet.
Yeah, it was amazing. And we haven't been really on board with the live action remakes thus far. So that blew me away. I knew it blew you away, and I think you were less excited to even watch the trailer than I was. So yeah, that was originally supposed to come out in March, and then they pushed it out to July. And I remember people saying, "Wow, July is not really that far out." I mean, almost simultaneously, Fast 9 was pushed out a year, and Disney was like, we're not going to push it out a year. We're just going to push it out to July. And so
for this, I think they chose the right date, like end of July. We're talking 2.5-ish months. I mean, so that's still pretty good. And do you think that there's going to be a situation that we kind of saw with these movie releases where they were releasing releasing it to streaming platforms pretty right away? Because I mean, we're talking Disney here. We've got Disney Plus now.
Well, this is not.
How quick are you thinking that's going to go? How quick do you think that's going to go to Disney Plus? Or do you think they have that planned already, or do you think that they're going to be like, you know what, we've released and the numbers for opening weekend weren't quite what we wanted them to be because everybody's still kind of paranoid about everything. So we've already got it uploaded to Disney Plus. Let's just unlock it for everybody.
Well, okay, so there's a bigger part of this conversation before we even talk about what happens if opening week isn't that great, and it's that we're almost 2 months out from that release date. The other big movie that's supposed to come in July is Christopher Nolan's Tenet, and Warner Brothers. This is their big film of the year. And it has been July 17th, and everything else in the summer has been pushed out. Tenet has not moved. And Christopher Nolan is pushing for this to be the film that brings America back into the theaters. He wants this to be, because right now, this is the first film that we would see. There's no other releases scheduled between now and July 17th. So and there's been talks about will Warner Brothers keep it there? Will they move it? And right now is the sweet spot to make that decision, because we're almost exactly 2 months away from that July 17th date, and we've only had one trailer, and that was back at the beginning of the year. So right now Warner Brothers and Disney are probably having meetings for, if we're going to stick to this, now we have to start paying for all that advertising. Now this is the time to start pushing out more trailers and TV spots and, posters and all that stuff. These are the 2 months before, and I've seen bigger films wait till a month before, like Endgame waited till a month before because they had to get those other films out of the way. So it's not like it can't be done, but they're getting into that territory right now where they have to commit to spending the advertising money, or they have to pull that date. And, if they commit, then they have a lot to lose if people don't come out to the movie, or if there's still a lot of restrictions as far as the population, in each theater and everything. And And so far, they haven't gone down the road of Universal where they've been talking about doing online options. And if they do put it out in the theaters, I'm guessing they're not going to want to break that window with theaters, because then that'll just be another controversy if they decide they're going to release it quicker to streaming, because WB will have HBO Max, so it's not like they don't have a streaming platform to launch it on as well. So, I think they're in a corner right now, and it's either they back out or they commit fully and start spending the money on it.
And also important to note that Warner Brothers has an August release for Wonder Woman right now.
Yeah.
And that one's highly anticipated as well. I would hope that by that point in time, like by mid to late summer, we're seeing things at least, I don't want to say normal, but normal enough to where that paranoia has subsided enough to where people are going back to theaters, probably with certain restrictions that are still in place. Like we've talked about this before. We have theaters that you buy your seats online, or you buy your seats in front of the theater, and they have you pick your seats right then and there, and all they have to do is those seats are bolted into the floor. They can pick them up and remove them as soon as they needed to. If they really wanted to limit and cause that level of spacing between everybody, they could do it.
Sure. Well, and let's be
dog snoring back there.
Is that? Can you hear that? Yeah, that's my.
I think I heard it there. That's like the first time you've talked about it before, but that's the first time I've ever actually heard it.
Can you see them? They're back in the corner. They're sharing the same bed right now, and when they do that, they ended up they snore to heck. But let's be careful how we say this now. It's not paranoia as much that's keeping people out. It's the fact that experts have said that social distancing as a concept could continue for the next year and a half. So even if we start opening things more and relaxing things more, those social distancing things will still be in place, which means that they might be able to say 50% of your theater can be full, or 33%. That's going to affect things. Even if people want to come out, there's not going to be as many seats. But at the same time, if you're like a 10 cinema movie theater and you only have one movie coming out, then you can dedicate more screens to that one movie and get more people in there, I guess.
And it's honestly, it's a case-by-case basis, because obviously theaters around here are going to have to follow some pretty strict guidelines because we're pretty heavily populated in this area. And
right.
But I've got an Old Town theater. They've got 3 screens in that theater. Yeah. And there's another theater where Cece's from, they've got like 1 screen in there. They're showing 1 movie at a time for like 3 weeks, and then they move on to one. It's like, I remember going out there. It was like it was quite a while after, it was quite a long time after Endgame had come out at that point, and they were still showing it.
Sure.
Like I was getting ready to buy the Blu-ray, and they still had Endgame in the theater. So, that theater isn't going to be quite as affected. I just hope that this doesn't end up becoming something that, like, because we've talked about the cinematic experience. I really hope that this doesn't have that dramatic of an effect on it. But like the next news story that you actually linked in here kind of scares the shit out of me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and one more thing before we get into that. Regarding the theater experience, if there's anybody that's the poster child for that, that's the biggest supporter for that, it's Christopher Nolan, and he has been putting the pressure on WB not to pull this. And like you said, it's not like, and I totally forgot that Wonder Woman is a WB property. It's not like this was their only film of the year. If they delay Tenet, then they just have to wait a month, and then Wonder Woman is going to come out. But I think these studios need to, they probably already having these conversations, but they just need to dial back their expectations, because their success in the normal world and their success in the post COVID-19 world. And I think if you look at it through that lens, releasing Tenet as the first major motion picture of the summer on July 17th, even if theaters can only fill, 30% or 50% of their theaters, that could still be seen as a success. I mean, we see Universal praising themselves, patting themselves on the shoulder for Trolls, and in a regular world that would not be a success, but it is now. So I think they could still find success if they dial back their expectations and maybe not spend as much on advertising as they normally would. Because do they really need to do that if there's no other movies coming out?
Well, and maybe not even dial back their expectations, but instead dial back their expectations on that opening weekend.
Sure.
And just be like, you know what, the theater, with that level of limitation that theaters are going to have to put down,
right,
that might actually increase that demand to be like, you know what, we want to get in there, we want to see this film, like right. we haven't been out. I'm getting cabin fever like crazy.
Yeah,
I'd love to have something to get out of the house with, but I mean, there's still that level of difficulty. Sure. But making the amount of money, I mean, what did it say the budget was for Tenet? Just sitting here, high. It was like, I mean, you know, it was. I think with marketing, we're talking $3.5 million. Yeah, $205 million to make, $115 million around marketing, and that's an estimate. That's not an official thing, but reportedly $205 million to make. To make that back in a post-COVID world, where we're like a very recently post-COVID world, not like a long time afterwards. I mean, and especially this being their riskier property out of the two. Like Wonder Woman, they've kind of got it locked in because the first one did pretty good.
Yeah.
And expectations are going to be right where they want them to be for people to come to see that film.
Yeah.
They probably won't even have to spend as much money on marketing for that one because it's already an established IP that they had a reasonable amount of success with.
Not to mention what other comic book films have come out this year.
It's like, I think, Black Widow won't be out by that time. I think Black Widow got pushed back beyond that.
I mean, I guess Bloodshot, but this will be the first major comic book property.
The first good one.
Yeah. But I mean, before then it was Wonder Woman versus Black Widow, and they were like originally releasing within a month of each other. Now Wonder Woman's coming out first, and I think it'll bring more people in. I mean, there's a lot of fans of Christopher Nolan, but you don't see Tenet be like, oh, that's a family film, let's go see it. You do see that with Wonder Woman.
I definitely see some conflict with him trying to keep him wanting it to, like, as the article quotes, that he wants Tenet to be the movie that brings people back into the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, would it not be smarter to maybe like flip the dates for Wonder Woman and Tenet and be like, you know what, Wonder Woman is the more established property. We have a good estimate as to how much money that it's going to make, even with all of this stuff in here. It's like, move it up into that July 17th date and move Tenet back in there. Or does he want it to be like the first film that brings, like, the first film out of Warner Brothers? Like, where does he actually want it to fall?
Sure.
I can definitely see some heads butting there.
Oh, I'm
especially
sure.
With them saying, it's like, hey, not a lot of people know what to expect out of this movie just yet. We gave you $200 million. We want to make sure we make that back.
But that could be what brings people. That could be like,
we
are starving for new stuff. We don't care what it is. And it's coming from the guy that made the best Batman movies in the last 20 years. Let's go see it, So
Inception. I think Inception was after the Dark Knight trilogy, or during.
I think it was between 2 and 3.
Yeah. That one stuck great.
Sure.
He stuck the landing on that one big time. Also, I mean, Tenet also has Robert Pattinson, who's fresh off of The Lighthouse.
Right. And coming up in the next Batman. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's going to be some name draw there as well to see him, especially with people hearing that he was going to be in Batman. Everybody's like, oh, well, we got to see how good of an actor he is.
For those that haven't seen his indie films, yeah.
Yeah, because they don't want to be like, oh, I can't believe Edward. That was the thing that I saw left and right. It was like, Edward is not my Batman. And I was just like, shut up,
man.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I was like, first of all, like, the first thing I saw him in was Harry Potter, and he did a good job in that. Like,
sure.
Like, just playing like a normal kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing Lighthouse is like, because I hadn't seen anything else. I hadn't seen any of the Twilight movies.
Really good indie movies since Twilight.
Yeah,
but
I saw him in Harry Potter, and then I saw The Lighthouse, and I was just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
he is a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, I had faith after hearing about like his success in some of the other indie films, but yeah, seeing him in Lighthouse alongside Willem Dafoe of all people, I'm just like, it was like he held his own with Willem Dafoe. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna give it to him.
Yeah,
like I'd like to see Willem Dafoe in that new Batman. Let him play the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, screw it, he'd kill it.
Right.
It's like, I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
There's nothing that we can do other than wait.
Yeah, it's something's gonna go down. If it's gonna be moved, it's gonna happen in the next couple of weeks, because they have to commit to. They've got to tell people about it, and that window of acceptability is starting to shrink now. So it's either they commit to it or they don't. But if WB bows out and they move Tenet, Disney's not moving Mulan. Disney wishes they were coming out before Tenet, and they're just hoping and praying that Warner Brothers pulls Tenet so that Disney can be the one that brings everybody back, because they will keep that date.
They especially need to start advertising if they're going to keep that date now, because I mean, we didn't get the trailer until December 19th.
Yeah.
A lot of time has gone by. This is not fresh in people's minds anymore, except for obviously people who were talking about it in this capacity.
Right.
So, I mean, speaking of theaters, I mean, we've got a lot. There was a lot going on with AMC throughout all this, like a lot. And then you link this article. This is from Markets Insider. AMC spikes 56% on reports that Amazon may be considering a takeover.
Yeah.
As of yesterday, May 11th. Amazon's video streaming ambitions have already left their mark on Hollywood, but the company's original movies are still shut out of major movie theater chains if it doesn't agree to a 3-month exclusivity window. While the report cautioned that it is not clear if discussions between the two companies are still active, a potential acquisition by Amazon would likely open the door for Amazon Prime original movies to be shown in major theater chains and streamed at home at the same time. Which was, Kat, you're destroying my blinds right now. Look at him. Like he's just. Can you see him right now?
Yeah.
He's destroying the blinds. Get out of here. Go. Stop. He messed him up real bad already. I'm gonna have to fix that now.
Well, this was strategic. This was a whoever leaked this, because there is no official like confirmation that talks even happened about Amazon buying out. But this is what we've been talking about for weeks now, is that even though AMC got, the bailout, and even though theaters were kind of mentioned in the White House and other major plans of reopening America, AMC was still hurting. They got a little bailout, they got a little help to stave off their bankruptcy, in the hopes that something will be happening soon and they'll be able to get back in there. But they were still going to be hurting for a while. And, it's been talked about a lot that somebody should come in and bail them out. And this would be a good chance to take them over. I mean, AMC is the biggest movie theater chain in the world. And it's not like Amazon doesn't have the money. I mean, if there's anybody that has more money than Disney, or as much money than Disney, it's Amazon. And Amazon spends it more frivolously than anybody else. I mean, when you look at their Amazon Prime content, it's not making them, anything. And yet they keep on doing it just because they just make so much money over at Amazon. And if they were to buy AMC, and then they can put some of their movies out in major theater chains, I mean, I see it as a win for them. But there's been no official talks, but just the rumor of it spiked the stocks for AMC, and that they're happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, so with that in mind, the fact that it is just talks, like before we even go too much further into the story, is like, do you believe that that's what's happening, or do you feel like this is just like the right kind of rumor to kind of like boost a little bit of confidence with their shareholders and everything?
No, I don't believe it's happening. I believe that it was probably somebody at a certain level that made a certain joke that then another person said, well, it's not like Amazon couldn't afford to do it. And then somebody else was like, run that story so that AMC could profit. And AMC has profited. I mean, there is nothing to support the rumor. It is the faintest upon faintest rumors. And yet it spiked the stocks 56%. I mean, if anything, it could have even been a charity move to help AMC out, because everybody has known that AMC has been struggling for months. So, I mean, could it happen? Sure. Are there official talks? I don't think there are. I don't think there are at all.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I feel like now especially is like the best time to start talking about a takeover. First of all, because Amazon has showed no signs of slowing down.
Right.
Even with workers protesting about the working conditions in their warehouses,
Mm-hmm.
Well, straight up quitting, throwing strikes. Even with, especially with AMC talking about bankruptcy possibilities, shutting down a bunch of theaters,
Mm-hmm.
taking on a huge amount of debt in order to keep paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is the perfect time to start circulating a rumor like that. What I find surprising, if it is true, is specifically how, like, if it ends up being true, I guess it doesn't surprise me as much. But the fact that it spiked 56% based off of an unconfirmed rumor from the Daily Mail of all places, which, to my knowledge, is a British.
I know. It's a British. They're not even an American
And well,
outlet.
no, they're British. I think they've been described to me as a tabloid before. So
they're on the they're on the line.
Yeah, they ride the fence a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, if it even ended up being a joke, just seeing this article, Jeff Bezos might have it in his head, be like, sure, you know what, I could do that.
I mean, had I heard about it, and I was the type of person that bought stocks, I would have done it, because I guarantee you, everybody that bought those stocks to spike that up, they had the same thought in their head. I could see Amazon doing that, because they've done it. They've done it so much. And would you put it past Amazon to do, while everybody else is struggling, Amazon sees it as the time to sweep up those bargain deals? You know, I mean,
especially
if you got the money,
push their own product.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, can you imagine a time where, like, because I know that you saw The Irishman in a theater.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't like a major theater. It wasn't like an AMC.
It was an indie theater. It was film streams.
It was an indie theater.
Yeah.
Can you imagine something like that becoming a regular? Like, Amazon would be the one to set that as a norm.
And that could be good. I mean, we've been talking about this. I mean, unless you're somebody like Steven Spielberg, who doesn't like streaming movies. I mean, there are so many good movies.
Well, at least then they would qualify.
Yeah.
You know,
they'd
qualify to him at that point.
Right. There are so many. We've just become accustomed to these studio films. We've become accustomed to Disney somehow owning the majority of the feature films that come out every year. And every year we get deeper into this, the farther away we go from those small budget films. It is so hard and so rare to see a small budget film rise up. You know, really the only time we see a small budget film succeed so much is when, it gets some type of award, buzz, and then theaters start accepting it more, and then it gets some time. But we really don't see small budget films get their time in the sun as much unless there's somebody big around it, like Jordan Peele or some big name that's pushing it. And if Amazon buying AMC means that they get to push their smaller properties, because they do have a lot of films. These aren't like
good ones too.
Yeah, and they've got big actors in it. It's not like these are like rink-a-dink, film school things, Amazon Studios has been putting out quality films for years.
And we've got like, obviously, and like their credibility is starting to pick up to a pretty insane point. I mean, they've been shoving this down my throat. I actually had to look it up. It's called Upload.
Yep.
But it's an original series, I believe. I don't think it's a movie, but it's an original series. But it was made by Greg Daniels, who if anybody recognizes Greg Daniels' name, it's going to be from The Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was a writer on Saturday Night Live. Like a lot of peak comedy shows from the last 10 years, I would say. I mean, that's a big name to grab.
Sure. Well, last year they really tried with The Goldfinch. That was a big movie. Yeah. That was an Amazon Studios movie that was based on a really popular book. It didn't amount to much, but they've had these films out there that they did have small theater runs, but if they owned the biggest theater chain, then they would definitely have the power to push their films out more. I don't see it. I mean, I see it as a possibility. I don't think it was real when the story dropped, but Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. He cheated on his wife, got a divorce. She took half, and he's still the richest man in the world by so much. He's a billionaire.
Women just based off of that.
Like that. And he's still a billionaire. He's still a multi-billionaire. And he is an Amazon. He's just an individual. Amazon is so big, and if I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they bought out things like Whole Foods, and they've been hit with controversy after controversy, and it doesn't matter. And they're just so big. So could it happen? Sure. Should it happen? Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, when you've got fuck you money,
that's the only way to describe it.
It's kind of hard to put anything past somebody buying up something like that, because I mean, we forget Jeff Bezos is he's invested that money in pretty smart ways. Like we got Blue Origin right now, which is gaining steam. As you mentioned, Whole Foods, but he also owns the Washington Post, which is one of the top media outlets in the country right now, at least as far as print. Then I could have swore there was something else. There was something else big that kind of stuck in my mind. But I don't know. I can't see it here right off the bat. But I don't know. I don't like the idea of it initially. Like it kind of hits you wrong, because Amazon doesn't exactly have a clean record right now.
No.
And especially after like hearing about the way that they treat workers and whatnot, like all of that combined just kind of like it leaves kind of a sour taste in your mouth when you hear about them buying up.
Sure.
Like, because they're already very heavily involved in media output in the streaming world, having them be like it's like another Disney, but like instead of it'd be like if Disney was trying to buy a theater chain, I'd be a little bit more concerned.
Yeah, but that is the difference, because that's
precedent level of control.
Yeah.
But Amazon's right up there.
Amazon's right up there, but they have so much other focus. But they could make that shift. But yeah, if this was a story about Disney buying AMC, I would be alarmed as hell, and I would not want that to happen. Disney's already criticized about owning so much of Hollywood. For them to own the biggest theater chain in the world, that would be a lot of red flags. Yeah. But I mean, and Amazon isn't that different, other than that they don't push their movies as much, and their movies is just a small part of it. But that could change. And yeah, it's dangerous talks. But right now, I'm really just wanting AMC to survive. And
yeah, if it keeps it's kind of that's a tough thing too, because I feel like if AMC didn't make it, would theaters then die, or would smaller theaters step in and be like, we're going to change the experience a little bit? Like I don't know if Alamo Drafthouse is associated with with AMC at all. I don't think that they are. But that was a theater chain that came in and you're like, we're going to do things a little bit differently. And they gained a lot of popularity until somebody had that unfortunate cleaner cocktail. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. And that was in Omaha.
Yeah, it was here.
Yeah. But the AMC is the biggest theater chain in the world right now because we already had this discussion. They did what Genesis Gyms have been doing. They've been buying out those failing smaller theaters. So before AMC was the biggest chain in numbers, there were already all these smaller theaters that weren't making it happen. They couldn't afford the distribution rights. They couldn't afford the food. They couldn't afford the upgrades. And then AMC bought them out and then converted and did the renovations. So if AMC left, I think we just have that many more open buildings, and I don't see it going back to the smaller ones. I think we just like we're seeing malls that are just empty now. I think there'd be, the other big theater companies don't have the money to buy all of AMC's theaters, and the smaller theater companies are rare that they succeed. So I think we just have a lot of empty buildings, and I think it'd be a huge loss. So even if, look how big of a rumor, or how big of a financial gain they got from a rumor. I think that shows that people want AMC to stick around. So we'll see what happens.
It's the circumstances in which it sticks around that are questionable.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it was a movie studio specifically that was buying out a theater chain, that would be a lot more concerning, because it was like, what level of competition are you going to be putting on films that you did not make being displayed in your theater?
Right.
And is Amazon not involved enough to that point to, because honestly, the amount of original content that they're putting out there, as far as movies go, how many of them are they specifically putting out that they would like to have as a theatrical release?
Right.
It's like, whereas I feel like Disney or Universal or something like that, they would want just about every single one of the films that they've been putting, because that's what the filmmakers have probably been wanting.
Absolutely.
But up until now, pretty much everybody who was like, hey, we're putting this project, I would have liked to have seen The Report in the theater. I think it would have held up in a theater environment.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I guess cool isn't the right word, but it was an incredibly interesting film. And that might just be because I'm a big Adam Driver fan, but yeah, I guess with Amazon being the one who's in the talks for it, it's not quite as bad as it could be.
But it could shift.
It could shift. I wonder what, I'm having a hard time thinking of directly negative consequences, because I'm not that enriched into the business side of everything as far as all that goes. You wonder what, whenever something like this happens, you got to wonder, is okay, what costs is Amazon taking on? Where are they going to put them? Because they're not going to absorb them.
Sure.
It's I don't imagine that an increase in movie ticket prices is going to make my Amazon Prime membership go up at all.
And you might see discounts for Amazon Prime members. When you look at things like when they acquired Whole Foods, Amazon Prime members get discounts at Whole Foods. So that is a pro. But then on the con side, we've heard that a lot of the items, the produce and things like that, have gone down in quality since Amazon bought Whole Foods. Whole Foods used to be the gold standard. And now that Amazon owns them, it is widely known that the quality of their products has gone down. So what is that going to be for AMC? And we can't think of any of crazy negative things right now. That doesn't mean they don't exist. And then you when you have people like Quentin Tarantino, who are already calling out big studios like Disney for strong arming the theaters already, and pushing out smaller films. Could this be a win for the smaller films, or could Amazon just become a bigger entity, and then they have that, they have that foothold in, and then they start doing their own business? It's all, there's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of question marks out there, and it's too early to talk about it, but it's an interesting concept for sure.
Well, and again, with the current landscape, as far like there's a lot of businesses that are going to be hurting, or that are already hurting, and they might need to look towards some less than perfect scenarios in order to make sure that they stay afloat. But we're back down to the waiting game. That's just where we're at. But we're at about a solid hour now.
Well, before we cut this off, there's one more story that I want to quickly talk about, because it's in the vein of all of this.
Sure.
And it can be short, but it's in the vein of all of this. It is that the Hamilton movie that everybody went crazy on when they learned back in February, Disney paid $75 million for the worldwide rights to show Hamilton in theaters. They had filmed before the original cast of the legendary Broadway show Hamilton. Before they left, they brought in cameras and they filmed the whole thing. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. So this is not like Russell Crowe's Les Mis. This is just filming the Broadway play that everybody and their mother wanted to see, but not everybody's seen. It gets sold out when it goes on tour, and of course that's not the original cast, but Hamilton took America and the world by storm, and they filmed it, and Disney paid $75 million to put that film in theaters. And today they've announced that they're actually going to drop that on Disney Plus on July 3rd. And that is huge.
15 months early.
That's huge. 15 months early. But then also, we're just going to drop it on streaming. We paid $75 million for it to do a theatrical run, and we're going to drop it on streaming. And that's huge.
Do you think they're looking for something that big to be like, you know what, everybody just watched The Mandalorian with their free trial. We got to get some people back now.
I think that is the story here. It's less of awesome, we're getting Hamilton, and it's more of Disney
I
Plus
won't get Hamilton
this.
unless I get Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney Plus needs an exclusive, and they need new content, man. Disney Plus came out on November 19th of 2019. And I remember when everybody and their mother was like, this is the day that Netflix is dead. Like, Netflix is over. There was a trending on Twitter, Netflix is dead because Disney Plus is here. And then Peacock was coming out, and then Quibi was coming out, and all these competitors. And guess who has stayed strong? Guess who has stayed strong, especially in COVID-19? Netflix. Netflix is still coming out with new content. They've been coming out with crazy amounts of new content for the last 3 months. And since Mandalorian, Disney Plus has had no new content. They've had a couple like reality shows, but they have really been just kind of a library. They have not had new exclusive content other than a couple of these shows. And that is why Netflix is just blowing people away. And, I could see somebody like, at Disney Plus saying, we need to bite the bullet and put Hamilton on Disney Plus because we need something. We need an exclusive, and we need something new, especially with everything being delayed.
I mean, personally, this doesn't really change my personal outlook on having a Disney Plus account. Because I was on board anyway, because I'm almost never not streaming something when I'm watching something.
Sure.
Like I had my Blu-ray collection, but a lot of the films that I had are on one of the several streaming services that I'm a part of. I mean, like, especially like Disney, you've got them a big selling point that they've got with Disney right now is that you can bundle in with ESPN and Hulu. And so you have access to all of that as well. That's a big thing. And immediately I jumped on it. I was like, absolutely, I'm going to jump on that. Like I got a Hulu account just so I could watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine again. Like that was the whole reason I got it. And I find myself like, because I'm always on the computer, I'm always working on something, I'm always streaming something in the background. And so this isn't something that's gonna stick me in there, but there is a huge amount of people who are like, you know what, I'm not gonna pay the $10 a month or whatever it ends up being for multiple different for multiple different streaming services. But honestly, I've been finding myself on Disney Plus a lot more, not just because of Clone Wars, because we've been watching Clone Wars. There's nowhere else to watch it right now, as far as I'm aware. But I mean, they've been adding a lot of stuff that's really good, because like I forget about how many properties that Disney actually has control over.
Sure.
But having Hamilton, the film that, like, or not the film, the play that everybody was talking about, everybody was talking about, is going to be another good way to like bring people in and be like, hey, you know what? Mandalorian was not universally attractive to everybody as far as getting them on board with our streaming service, but they're bringing them in now. So people who come in just to check out Hamilton are going to be inundated with the amount of other content they've got in there, because we got standard straight up Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, a lot of Fox properties, like all of the Simpsons are on there, all of them. You've got all of the MCU, almost all of the MCU films. There's a few excluded because they're out on other streaming services right now. A huge amount of Star Wars content, a couple classics that they're showing me just here on my front page here. We've got let's see, it was just here, The Princess Bride, which excellent film. It was like that. I mean, when that shows up on a streaming service, I'm watching it.
Sure.
Like if I log in that day and I pop into that, I'm watching it 100%. They've got a bunch of they've got a nostalgic movies category now, which is where we're seeing films like Willow. Do you remember Willow?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen that in
Val Kilmer.
Forever.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that movie in forever.
No, wait. Is Willow with Val Kilmer or with Tom Cruise?
Yes, it's Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer, yeah. What's the Tom Cruise one? That's another fantasy one. Never mind, but it's with
no
Val
idea.
Kilmer.
But yeah, Warwick Davis, Val Kilmer. It's like great adventure film. The Sound of Music, which I was a musical nerd back in those days, but that's a big one. The Rocketeer.
Yeah. Look,
they're catching people with nostalgia, and then also bring like the huge amount of new content they've got in there. I haven't been paid by Disney, but I've been finding myself on Disney Plus more and more lately.
They don't have that much new content though. They
not as much new, but that's not the
that's
point. Like, they're catching people with the stuff that they watched as kids.
It is the point if they wanted to be a Netflix competitor. It's one thing to be an online library and to sell yourself that way, because they do have an incredible library, but that's not how they sold themselves. They said, in addition to our library, we're going to be competing with Netflix with original content. And then they didn't have that much original content to launch in their first year. They've said, actually, it's going to be coming in the later half of the first year and the years to come. Well, then a lot of those properties, especially the Marvel properties that they've been selling to everybody, have been delayed. Now those aren't coming out until much, much later. And, yes, there's plenty of people like you that see the benefit and that see the amazingness of having this library at their fingertips. But there's plenty of other impatient people that are like, no, we want that, but we also want new content. And this was heralded by so many people as the Netflix killer. But, when Disney is putting out something new once a month and Netflix is putting out something new 5-10 times a day, it's crazy to think that people actually thought Netflix was going somewhere. It's not.
But you also have to think about quality over quantity, and Netflix does have a bit of a problem with quality, or with quantity over quality in some cases. They're heavy hitting original series. I mean, the one that got me onto Netflix was Orange Is the New Black, and that one's done. That one's over. I haven't really locked into a bunch of their other original series other than Stranger Things.
Sure, but it's not just that. They also bring in foreign films. They bring in animation things. Yeah. I mean, especially when everybody is stuck at home right now and there's no theaters and there's no TV. I mean, everything that's under production has been halted, and yet somehow Netflix has this backlog of stuff, and they're bringing in, yes, in a normal world, you could be a little more stricter when you're talking about quality, but right now, quantity is the thing. I mean, something new is already that much higher in quality because it's new. And the fact that Netflix continues to just blow everybody up with new things is amazing to me. But that doesn't mean I'm not dogging on Disney. I'm just saying that it is interesting that they were going to make so much money with Hamilton when they released that in the theaters. It was going to be a landmark thing to just film a Broadway play and then release that in theaters. That was going to be a huge, huge moneymaker for them. To only spend $75 for the rights for that, that was going to be huge for them. And now they're going to release it on Disney Plus, and they're hoping that this means more people will subscribe to Disney Plus. Whether that's the case, who knows? But it's exciting because I want to see it, but it's also alarming because that was clearly a strategic move to buy the rights for that because they were going to make so much money, and now they're not.
Well, I think it's important to remember that as far as Disney Plus goes, we're still in year one.
Yeah.
And I mean, making the business deals, and like obviously once they've released, and that level of attractiveness is being shown by filmmakers and whatnot, we're going to start seeing a lot more of that original content. We're going to start seeing more of the I mean, Onward was just released not too terrible long ago, Disney and Pixar, and it's already up on Disney Plus.
Yeah, but that's because their hand was forced.
Sure.
Like, I mean, in a non-COVID-19 world, you really think that they're gonna release high quality movies on Disney Plus?
If it means that they're going to have a guarantee that, like, okay, so you think about this, the average ticket price for somebody being around $10, like even if we're saying that it's around $10, if they're getting people in on those bundled deals, like it doesn't matter who they release the film, it doesn't matter what they release the film on. It's like if they've got a set amount of subscribers that are paying every month, whether they're utilizing the service or not on a regular basis, that's still a lot of money in their pocket.
Yes, but look at what they were announced when they launched Disney Plus. The only movies that they were announcing back then was Noelle, which was an Anna Kendrick shelved Christmas movie that they just had on the shelf that nobody gave a shit about, and the Lady and the Tramp remake, whatever that was. That was never going to be in theaters. They
didn't give a shit about it either.
Exactly. They never announced big movies back then because everybody was like, well, they're still going to put the big movies in the theaters. So it is something to say that they're starting to change that now. I mean, because their hands are forced. But I don't think this is something that we can see as a new trend. We're not seeing Mulan dropping on Disney Plus. That's not going to happen. I think they're just scrambling with ideas right now.
I think it'd be safe to say that we're going to see Mulan on Disney Plus within a month of its theatrical release.
That's going to piss off some theaters. I guarantee you that.
It's going to piss off some theaters, but like they also gave, like Disney's going to say, it's like, well, we gave you a month. What do you, and we're Disney. What are you going to do about it?
Right. But that's
like, I'm not on board. I'm not in favor of any of this stuff. I'm just saying it's Disney. They're going to do it and people are going to have to deal with it.
But
that's kind of the unfortunate side of them having so much power and influence over everything that they've done now.
Sure, but they're not putting it in theaters for charity to theaters. They're putting it in theaters because they need to make money. If they drop Mulan on Disney Plus right now, they're going to get some new subscribers, but they're not going to make a fraction of the money that they would make in the theaters. They need to release those movies in theaters to make back their money. I mean, if they dropped it in theaters and then they just put it on Disney Plus, that's insane. They wouldn't make half the money that they would make in theaters. I think what you said earlier is the more correct strategy, is focusing on the long game and keeping it in theaters because there's not going to be anything else. So it'll be more and more people just going to see the same movie. But if they were to do some really short window release in theaters and then just drop it online, they would lose so much to piracy, to subscriptions, to whatever.
Sure, but like I'm thinking about this from from like a business perspective, as far as they are concerned, like, because we're thinking like, all right, so uh, I'm trying to find some data on like the average theater run for how long a film actually stays in a it's like a movie is in a theater 4 weeks on average, 3 to 4 weeks common. The main question is, does the show sell enough tickets to warrant reserving space and time to showing it? If a movie is doing well, it'll often stay in theaters. Another factor is theater size, yada yada yada.
Okay, but
That's from Quora.
that's the average
So,
movie. Look at how long a Disney movie stays in theaters. That's a couple months.
I'm just thinking that they're gonna have some incentive to try and pull in subscribers to their service. They're gonna try and incentivize that stuff, especially if they see a downtrend in people going to theaters. Like, obviously we're talking about a COVID influenced time.
Sure.
And again, I'm not in favor of this. like I'm not saying that this is what they should be doing, or this is what I want them to be doing. I'm feeling like, just with the like, I mean, they jumped into the streaming service for a reason,
right? Like, but how many of those families already have it? Think about a family of 4 with 2 kids to go see Mulan in the theaters. That's what, $40-$50 if they're lucky, for one time. They pay $10 a month. They can watch Mulan 10 times a day all month for $10. They want to see Mulan twice in theaters. That's $100 for that family. You're telling me it's a better business move for them to move a theater, a big moneymaker, out of a theater to a thing when they're getting $50-$60 a family for one viewing in exchange for a billion viewings a month for $10? That doesn't make any sense business wise.
After 4 to 5 weeks with region locks, yeah, I can absolutely see them doing something like that. Like, I'm not saying that when they release it to Disney Plus, it's going to go to every single country that Disney Plus is available in, because we don't see that either. Like, we're seeing, like, obviously, after 4 to 5 weeks of that movie being released in the United States, I can see them opening up to specifically just the United States, or maybe just North America on Disney Plus. But keeping it locked out of their foreign markets, which we know generally tend to open a little bit later, and also tend to stay a little bit longer because of higher population areas. Like, they have the power to do that. They have the technology in order to limit those regions. And like, if they feel like if somebody in Disney feels like, instead of it taking away from their money but helping to add money, I can absolutely see them making that decision right off of the bat. Like, especially using it as an incentive to the theaters to pay them more, or to push the movie more, or something like that. It'd be like having something like that to hold over the studio's heads. It's a real dickhead move, but can you honestly not see Disney pulling something like that, or any studio for that matter who has that level of influence?
Well, I could see if there's any rumor of them doing that. If in the weeks prior to Mulan's July 24th date, if there's even the slightest rumor that they say we're going to launch on July 24th, on August 24th it's coming out in Disney Plus, I could see a crazy number of people saying, why should I pay to see this now when I can just wait a couple weeks and get it up for free on Disney Plus, or get it for free via other ways? Because the second it's on Disney Plus, it's pirated. It's done. So if there's even a hint of them doing that, I think it's going to kill the theatrical run. And then they've spent all this money for nothing.
That's true, but Disney's done a pretty damn good job in the recent past, of keeping secrets.
They have. But these are different times.
These are absolutely different times. I can't fault you there. I'm looking at it from a very pessimistic point of view.
Sure.
And again, I'm not in favor of them doing this. I would like theaters to be the first and last place that people go to see a film for the first time, honestly. But that's not realistic. Like, it's just not, it's not possible. Because the technology has surpassed
Sure.
That being the, I mean, if not the first place, definitely the last place that somebody will see a film.
Yeah, I know, and I'm just so passionate about this because I'm so intrigued about what's going to happen. But I just, from a business standpoint, Disney Plus and Disney Studio, or the movies that Disney and Marvel puts out on the in regards to the budget line at the beginning of 2020, those were two different things. They were expecting to get so much in subscribers for Disney Plus, and they were expecting to make so much from ticket sales. And as soon as they start taking away from that ticket sales pile and putting it into Disney Plus, it will not balance out. It won't, because so many people already have Disney Plus. And I mean, it is just not, it is not a model to it's not a replacement model. It was a supplemental model, but they were still going to be making crazy money on, I mean, I'm looking at Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. It had a $275 million budget, and it made over $1 billion worldwide from the theater. That's not talking about from Blu-rays, from whatever, from Disney Plus subscriptions. Had that been cut, and then they just put it online, it wouldn't have made a fraction of that.
We're also talking Star Wars, though.
True, I know we're talking Star Wars.
That is a big variable to have that that tag on your line. But
look at it. Every other Disney live action movie has made huge numbers. Lion King, Beauty and the Beast. These are huge. These are huge investments to just throw away and put, because because they would lose crazy amounts of money.
But do you feel like the economic impact that we're seeing right now might end up playing a factor, because we got more people out of work than we have had in American history? I believe I believe we actually have more. Stop it, Kat. I believe that was the most recent figure, that we have more people out of work than we've ever had.
Sure.
And how many people are going to be back to work, working regularly, to a point where they can splurge on spending the $60 to $70, $60 to $100 to take their family out to see a film?
Well, so then that
when they can spend it on that
$10, but
have it on their subscription service and just wait a few weeks.
Disney's not going to just throw away their big money makers for charity. No. I mean, this goes back to our how we started off this episode. Are they going to keep this date? Because I think if they really don't see people coming out to the theaters, they're not just going to release it for a couple weeks and put it on Disney Plus. They're going to push it out. If they thought that this was going to be a moneymaker, which is just why Hamilton is so surprising, because they paid so little for it and what they thought they were going to make. But I can't see them doing that with Mulan.
I mean, maybe with the smaller amount of money that they actually spent in order to get a hold of it, that might be playing a factor into it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, The Lion King made $1.6 billion. And I didn't see that movie. And a lot of people talk major shit about that, but it made $1.6 billion. And Mulan, and so that's not Star Wars, and I get it. It's The Lion King, but it's a huge Disney property that's a remake. And I guarantee you they were hoping that Mulan would be in the same line as a big Disney movie that they spent a lot of money to remake it, and they can't just throw it away. I know me and you are.
I don't think we're gonna. I mean, it's great that we disagree on something finally.
Yeah, yeah.
For the history of the podcast, we've been on the same page for the most part.
Yeah.
I feel like, if not maybe not inside 4 weeks, not less than 4 weeks, throwing it up on there, but I definitely see the window being much shorter, than it used to be. Even post-COVID, post-COVID problems. That window of going from, as soon as they start seeing theater numbers dwindling to a reasonable point, they're probably not even going to tell people that when they're actually releasing it to Disney Plus. They're just going to do it, and it's they're just going to throw it up there, and the subscribers that they already have are going to be like, all right, great, well, we already saw it, but I want to watch it again. I don't want to pay to go and see it in the theater a second time.
I would see them doing that, but I'd also see them redefining what dwindling means and stuff like that, because in a normal year, every one of those weeks you had another blockbuster coming out or you had more competition. Right now, that's not happening. Right now, there's 2 films coming out in July, Tenet and this. July is one of the biggest months of the summer, and there's only 2 films coming out.
It's supposed to be.
You know,
That's.
I mean, normally
this is a tough year to make any real business predictions about how
it's all an experiment, and that's why it's getting me so excited, because I can't wait to see what happens, especially after we're coming off of 2019, which was a record year for Hollywood. This is just going to pale in comparison to those numbers for sure.
I mean, it's interesting to see where it's going to go. Like, I honestly, I want the theater industry to last as long as it possibly can. I'd like it to last long enough for me to get one of my own films into a theater one day.
Yeah.
Ideally, that would be great. I got to get off my ass if that's going to happen. But yeah, no, it's this is a weird year to be making any like solid predictions, because things are like, it's still a wild card year. Like, it still could go.
It's going to be this way. It's going to have a ripple effect for a couple of years, I feel.
Yeah. I don't know. Until, like, hopefully Disney doesn't get it into their head that it's like, oh, Amazon's buying AMC, maybe we should jump in there first.
Oh God, can you imagine?
Can we, like, let's hope that there's not a bidding war right around the corner that we end up seeing.
Yeah.
Well, we just did a solid hour and a half for our first video podcast in a long time. Actually, ever. Is this our first video podcast ever? I think even for season 1, we didn't do any video versions of it.
Yeah. Well, we're adapting. We're getting
there. So yeah. Now we did video versions of it, but our faces weren't in it.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. So Nerf Herders will probably, I don't know about Josh. I assume that you were editing this one, so I guess it kind of depends on how how strenuous this ends up being on you as to whether or not this becomes a regular thing. But
how intricate we make this. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not going to be doing a ton of footage for all of this. I'm we had 4 stories. I'll probably have 4 images next to our pictures, but still,
thankfully you don't have to go in and do a bunch of cuts.
I like seeing you. So,
Yeah. No, like, it was, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of human faces outside of coworkers in a long time. So this was quite nice. It's that level of social interaction that we're missing in these COVID times. But yeah, until it's time for us to assemble again next time, Nerf Herders, be sure to jump in on social media and be a part of the conversation. We will answer your questions. Hit us up in the comments down below if there's something you'd like us to talk about, or if you feel like we were completely wrong about what we were talking about today. Hit us up in there. Be honest. We can take it. And we've got plenty of other content coming your way here on this channel. I'm continuing my Jedi Order playthrough. I took a little bit of a break in releases there, but that one's going to be coming back. And I believe that you, sir, are watching more anime, and I'm going to be keeping up on that series. Also,
I'm watching it. I'm just trying to film it.
The series that I've been liking an awful lot, which is your, I mean, you've only done 2 so far, but it's been great, is your My Friend Showed Me.
Yeah.
Series, which is you catching up on films that you go ahead and explain it. Like, I'm not going to butcher it.
Well, it's more just a celebration. I am normally the person that shows films to my friends, and I'm rarely the person that gets shown something by somebody else. And so when I do, I think it's great. Even if I don't like it, it's something that they convinced me to watch, and normally I do like it. So I'm just doing a series of the ones that I've really liked and celebrating the people that showed it to me. So I did one on The Greasy Strangler with Billy Peck, and we just did one with Flash Gordon with Doug Holmes, and I got a couple coming out with Ali Gambino, who showed me things like Parks and Rec. And she's actually responsible for me seeing The Matrix for the first time. So not that I didn't know about The Matrix or didn't want to see The Matrix, but at the time I wasn't able to.
You didn't get that push to.
It was also an R-rated film in theaters, so my parents weren't going to take me to it. But she bought me that for my birthday on VHS, and so because of her, I got to see.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so I want to celebrate those people. So I'm trying to do some interviews like that and more content for the channel. It's easy to do.
Awesome. Well, like we say, Nerf Herders, we will have more for you guys when we assemble again next time. But until then, check us out on social media. Hit the like button if you like this episode. Subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. And we will see you guys again soon.